John, where did you put that little earthen cup? I'd like to hold it in my hands a while. Thank you, John. Oh, go ahead and smile and shake your head in an old woman's whim. I know you hold that other cup more dear, but only once he drank from it the wine that stood for sacrifice and blood. From mine, he drank cold water as a little boy, smooth, polished by his hands. It speaks to me of joy and not of blood. It speaks to me of him who was my child long, long time ago. Cool to the touch and filled to the brim with light. Oh, that other cup's the world's, my dear. My memories are in this small one here. John, how quickly have the years gone by. How thin and white this hair. How full of years this body. And my face reminds me of a creek bed when the summer rains have gone. Like summer rains, my tears once fell passionately, showered warm and fast. Not anymore. What earthly use have I for tears when I'm about to die? For age, no tears. For age, remembering of moments, standing like tall mountains, far from the clamoring small things we call a life. And oh, the memories I've set apart, the things I have to ponder in my heart. The thing I best remember is the light. That day the angel came, the light was there. It filled the room so suddenly one might have thought the sun uncovered by a cloud, except the sky was cloudless, hot and bright. The kind of sky a rainbow brings. I looked out over the rooftops wondering, and then I heard his voice, like distant thundering. You've heard the little locust when he sings? Strange, the immensity of little things sometimes. His voice was really never very loud, but as the sunlight filled the sky, his voice filled the room, just as the light had done. The light and sound and presence. And then this sound, this voice called out my name. I turned and saw him standing in the door, bigger than anything I'd ever seen before, bigger than anyone or anything, at least it seemed so to me, dressed the way he was in all that white and gold with blue and light behind and all around and even through him, much the same way the sun shines through the trees in spring. And then he said to me, Hail Mary, favored one, may the Lord be with you. I was terrified. I was so frightened that I could not speak. Words stuck in my throat, my legs were weak. And then he told me very gently not to be afraid. He said that I would have a son and call his name Jesus, and he would be great and reign on David's throne forever. Oh, foolishly, I said the first thing that came into my reeling head. How can this be, I asked. I know no man. And oh, the look he gave to me and said, the Holy Spirit will come upon you. The power of the Lord will encompass you. Your child will be the Holy Son of God. Then he told me of Elizabeth, my kin, and of the boy child she soon would bear. I heard the words. I tried to take them in, and in my heart began a wordless prayer of understanding. Then all at once the light seemed entered into me. I felt it in my nerves. I felt it in my throat. And all at once the light and words were one. Oh, I don't know how to tell you what it was. But down I went, upon my knees and wept. Your handmaiden, I said. So as you said, so let it be to me. Then he was gone, and only the light remained, slanting like sunset on a dusky day. And it was slow to go, just as his voice was lingering when he was far away. Then in a few days it seemed, I don't know, like something that I might have dreamed. My first thought was of Elizabeth, my kin, and she with child, and so I went off to the hills to where she lived in case she needed me. Well, that's what I told myself. That's what I said, but oh, it was I that needed her instead. 15 I was, and both my parents dead. Elizabeth was great with child, but looked much younger than I had remembered her. As we embraced, I felt the tiny shock of movement as the child within her leapt. My cousin laughed. Great tears of joy ran down her wrinkled cheeks, and then she cried, "Oh, blessed day that I have lived to see, that the mother of my Lord should come to me." And do you know, my cousin saying that made it seem real and true to me at last. I felt such joy as I have never known. And deep inside my soul began a song of strength and praise, all of its own accord. But John, I could not see, and still cannot after all these years, of all the maidens in the world, why did God choose me? No, that isn't so. Of all the things I know what I was not. It was because I was so very human, John, and simple, and a prey to all the cares of human simple people. You don't know, for instance, how it was when I returned to Nazareth from Judah. 3 long months I had been gone. The child within me showed, a fullness visible beneath my shawls. And John, I never shall forget his face. That he would doubt my word had not occurred to me at all. But he was kind. He would have done the thing in secret and would not have had me stoned. But I was sick with worrying. You see how little faith I had? That very night, an angel came to Joseph in a dream. Dear Joseph, he would never doubt a dream. The light was there again in Bethlehem when he was born. It was a lovely night. I can still remember how the moon came out as we drew near the inn, and how the stars and the moon shone along the grass that grew along the slopes and waved like water in the evening wind. I can remember, if I close my eyes, the plaintive sound the little donkey made, the pungent smells in the cave. Mehetabel. That was our donkey's name. Must have seemed a strange and foreign place to poor Mehetabel. I know it did to me. So strange that nothing seemed quite real. The inn, the town, the dry and ancient cave where cobwebs hung, bespangled with the chaff of years. And least of all myself. Oh, I can still feel, thinking back on it, the pain that crept upon me through the night, stifling and strong until I was no longer anything but pain. And then in its last extremities it changed. And I felt within me all the joy that ever was, a surging song of strength, relief, tenderness. And all around the light was shining. Cobwebs turned to gold, and golden chaff lay drifted on the ground. There was no corner of the cave left dark. The door was open to the evening air, and on the hillside light shone everywhere, brighter than any moon. Brighter by far than sun at noonday or the brightest star. And as the brilliance shone, oh, I felt a glow of joy. But as the light began to fade, I had a vague presentiment as though the happy times were past, and that forevermore a nameless dread would wait outside my door, perverse in one so singularly blessed. They brought the child and laid him at my breast, where where he lay quietly and gazed at me with cloudy violet eyes. What did he see, I wonder? Such a solemn little face. Did he feel alien in such a place? Out in the meadow, shepherds saw the star, and angels told them that the Christ was born. They all came crowding in at break of morn to see the baby lying in the hay. And some knelt down to worship him and pray. And others looked and laughed and went away. John, have I ever told you what he said? That strange old man who came and took my child there in the temple. That first time it was when we had taken turtle doves and were presenting Jesus to the Lord. Well, he spoke as one who knew me. And that at the last, through tears that veiled his eyes, he looked at me and said, "A sword shall pierce thy own soul too." John, he was right. What he said came true. A few had taken what the shepherd said as notable. It was a different thing when wise men from the east came seeking him who was to rule the Jews. They were so grand and strange, you know, and foreign-looking too, that people hung on every word they said. At last the old king Herod heard. That night my husband had another dream and woke from it with sweat upon his brow, eyes wild with fear. Nothing would do but that we all get up and flee that very instant for our lives. A year we were in Egypt, 1 whole year away from kin and friends and dear old Galilee. At first I thought it was a foolish thing to do. But then one day, a caravan came through and told us of the massacre of all the little children under 2. John, it makes me weep even today. A mother never mothers only one, but must lament for every mother's son. So when I thought of all those babies dead, and mine alone alive, I bowed my head as Noah had done after the deluge. But I found I was not like Noah on Mount Ararat. I could not thank God for a thing like that. Those were the best years there in Nazareth. Busy years with children being born and growing up and never time for worrying or fears. Oh, I wasted all that precious time, I think, preoccupied with unimportant things. Who's to say? For who can say the good of laundered linens, songs a mother sings, a loaf of bread, a toy made from scraps of wood, and all the things I never thought to say. I think somehow he heard them anyway. But it was hard to keep in mind that he was different. My firstborn son, he who I had nursed, and he whose swaddling clothes I had changed. He seemed so like anyone. As on that day when we could not find him with the caravan. At last resort, we went back to Jerusalem. There we found him, with the rabbi in the temple court. The weak relief I felt. I had been frantic, and I told him so in front of everyone. With some surprise, he looked at us and said, "Did you not know that I must be about my Father's work?" As if in saying that, I'd not be fretting. I did know, really, but I kept forgetting. When Joseph died, oh, my eldest was a rock to lean upon, and we all leaned on him those years he kept the shop and stayed at home. It was a calm and peaceful interim before the storm. But my old, vague fears returned the day I saw my cousin's son, young John. Oh, boy. He looked so, yes, he that I had felt leap in his mother's womb. He looked no longer young, but gaunt and wan, half starved from living in the wilderness. And it was wild. His eyes were wild, and he wore skins. preaching everywhere and baptizing men, saying that our Messiah was my firstborn son. Oh, from that time on, my son was not my son. Oh, it wasn't just that he went away. It was something more. We could not talk. I never could find anything to say. There was one time, right at the first, I tried to keep him by my side, at my beck and call, to prove it to myself and all the rest that no matter what happened, he was still mine. We were at a wedding feast in Cana. They had run out of wine. I don't know. I didn't know what he could do, but I asked. Not for the bride and groom, but for myself. How very gently then he told me how it was. "O woman," he said, "what have I to do with thee?" Oh, yes. He turned the water into wine. The guests all praised as being very fine. I could not say, for as I raised my cup, tears caught in my throat. I could not swallow mine. The pomegranate dropped its orange bells. The olives ripened on the hillside. Windflowers cast their seeds and died. Then winter was over and they bloomed again. Like windflowers, words swept about the streets of Nazareth. Words about my son. Oh, words of wondrous things. And terrible. I did not know which ones were true. And so with my younger sons, we went to see for ourselves which ones were true. He was at Peter's house, and all the crowd was gathered in the court. We could not pass, and so sent word through to Jesus that we'd come. He did not pause, but raised up either hand, and I could hear him say, "These are my mother and my brothers who hear the word of God and do his will." He did not come to us. So we went away with heavy heart. We did not understand. Spring came again, and in the wilderness acacia blossomed gold. The apricot grew ripe and full, fell softly to the ground. But every day was dark with dreariness. I knew what was to come, or thought I knew, but oh, I did not know. What had gone wrong? What of the wise man and the angel song, the throne of David? Passover approached. Again I journeyed to Jerusalem, for I was done with waiting and with longing, and I would go, though there be no returning. As I passed through the town, I heard the news from strangers, from the crowds that filled the streets and surged, a moving wall behind the cross that stood above their heads. I pushed, I wept, but other women there were pushing, other women wept. No one heard. No one believed that I was Jesus' mother. How long we struggled up that narrow street. But when at last we got out on the hillside and I could see him clearly, it was worse. His naked, bleeding body haunts me still. My hands reached out but could not take the thorns from that dear head that had lain on my breast. My arms ached to hold him, but could not help him, could not give him rest. I would have dashed that hateful vinegar onto the ground and given him good wine. But even that I could not do for him. He was the world's. He was no longer mine. Then lightning lit his face, and I could see his eyes. My son was looking straight at me. Remember, John, how much his eyes could say. When he was just a little boy, they widened with an anxious, wondering love. That was the way he looked at me just then. Only so full of hurts, I thought my heart would break. And then in his pain, he worried for my sake. For then he said, "Woman, behold thy son," and gave me over to your keeping, John. Yes, he had seen the torn place in my soul and tried with his last breath to make it whole. The light was gone. It had gone out with him. That afternoon upon that skull-shaped hill, night came too early and there were no stars. Never had evening been so dark and chill. Never had Sabbath dawned so gray and still. Then, on the third day's dawning, I awoke to hear the song of spring the swallow sings. And as I crossed the quiet, sleepy town, the kind of light a rainbow brings lit up the east and touched the cypress trees and gilded crocus growing on the hill. It shone upon the stone that stood apart, and in the empty tomb shone brighter still. I did not see the truth of it at first. I had not even thought of it before. But now my heart groped longingly ahead to a beckoning and light-filled door. And as I stared, I heard the voice of the angel say, "He is not here, but is risen, as I said." The linen clothes lay in the sepulchre, but he was gone. My Jesus was not dead. He was the light that lingered here a while, a brightness in the night to show the way. We were the earthbound, but the light is free. It knows no bonds nor bounds, and neither earth nor death can hold it fast. Thus will it be that man will hear about the wondrous birth, and man will see the brilliance from afar, and he'll follow, worlds and centuries apart, the shining of a bright and distant star, to find the light bright glowing in his heart. And I, oh, all that I've lost, I treasure still. But God ever needs an empty cup to fill.